Agenda setting. It's the ability of the news to influence the importance placed on certain topics by public opinion, just by covering them frequently and prominently. Appeal to fear. Appeals to fear seek to build support by instilling anxiety and panic in the general population. Appeal to prejudice. Using prejudices to attach value or moral goodness to something. Inevitable victory. Invites those not already on the bandwagon to join those already on the road to certain victory. Those already, or at least partially, on the bandwagon are reassured that staying aboard is their best course of action. Join the crowd. This technique is used to convince the audience that a program is an expression of an irresistible mass movement and that it is in their best interest to join. Beautiful people. This technique is usually used in advertising instead of politics. It's the type of propaganda that deals with famous people or depicts attractive, happy people. This suggests that if people buy a product or follow a certain ideology, they too will be happy or successful. Big lie. The main belief behind this technique is that people will more easily fall victim to a big lie than to a small one. It could happen because others are at a loss for where to even begin to refute it. Classical conditioning. Everyone responds to classical conditioning, which is a behavioral procedure in which a natural stimulus is associated with a neutral stimulus enough times to create the same response by using just the neutral one. Cognitive dissonance. It exploits people's desire to be consistent. For example, if an analyst finds that a certain group of people hate his candidate for senator but love actor A, he could use actor A's endorsement of their candidate to change people's minds. Plain folk. It attempts to convince the audience that the propagandist's positions reflect the common sense of the people. It is designed to win the confidence of the audience by communicating in the common manner and style of the target audience. A common example of this type of propaganda is a political figure, usually running for a placement in a backyard or shop doing daily routine things. Cult of personality. A cult of personality arises when an individual uses mass media to create an idealized and heroic public image, often through unquestioning flattery and praise. The hero personality then advocates the positions that the propagandist desires to promote. Demonizing the enemy. Making individuals from the opposing side appear to be subhuman, worthless, or immoral. Demoralization. Propaganda directed at an adversary to erode fighting spirit and encourage surrender or defection. Dictat. This technique hopes to simplify the decision-making process by using images and words to tell the audience exactly what action to take, eliminating any other possible choices. Disinformation. The creation or deletion of information from public records for the purpose of making a false record of an event or the actions of a person or organization, including faking photographs, videos, and sound recordings as well as printed documents. Divide and rule. It means gaining and maintaining power by breaking up larger concentrations of power into pieces that individually have less power than the one implementing the strategy. Using euphemism. An euphemism is a generally innocuous word or expression used in place of one that may be found offensive or suggest something unpleasant. Euphoria. Using an appealing event that generates happiness to boost morale, such as a military parade with marching bands and patriotic messages, or making luxury items available. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Sometimes abbreviated as FUD, it's an attempt to influence public perception by disseminating negative and dubious false information designed to undermine the credibility of their beliefs. It could be considered a manifestation of the appeal to fear technique. Firehose of Falsehood. It's a propaganda technique in which a large number of messages are broadcast rapidly, repetitively, and continuously over multiple channels, such as news and social media, without regard for truth or consistency. Flag waving. It's an attempt to justify an action on the grounds that doing so will make one more patriotic or in some way benefit a group, country, or idea. Flak. Efforts to discredit or cast doubt on the prevailing assumptions. Foot in the door technique. Often used by recruiters and salesmen. For example, the perpetrator walks up to the victim and pins a flower or gives a small gift to the victim. The victim says thanks, and now they have incurred a psychological debt to the perpetrator. The person eventually asks for a larger favor. Framing. It happens when, in order to persuade a political audience of one side of an argument or another, the facts are presented through a rhetorical frame that shifts the individual's perception. Gish Gallop. Bombarding a political opponent with obnoxiously complex questions in rapid fire during a debate to make the opponent appear to not know what they are talking about. Glittering generality. Glittering generalities are emotionally appealing words that are applied to a product or idea, but present no concrete argument or analysis. It has the intent of associating the product or idea with an already established feel-good value in the mind of the audience. They ask for approval without examination of the reason. Guilt by association. This technique is used to persuade a target audience to disapprove of an action or idea by suggesting that the idea is popular among disliked groups. Half-truth. A half-truth is a deceptive statement that includes some element of truth. It comes in several forms. The statement might be partly true, the statement may be totally true, but only part of the whole truth, or it may utilize some deceptive element, such as improper punctuation. Information overload. When an entity floods a certain topic with an enormous amount of information in order to increase the difficulty of understanding an issue and effectively making decisions, it can have the same effect as secrecy. For the first time, I'll actually give you guys a solution to this technique, since the line between news and propaganda is maybe the blurriest it's ever been. This solution is available thanks to our sponsor, Ground News, which is an app and website that lets you see how a single news story is being covered around the world and across the political spectrum. Let me show you how it works. Take a look at this story on North Korea's response to anti-Pyongyang propaganda leaflets. I can see that this story has been covered by 25 sources, including 7 that are left-leaning while only 2 are right-leaning. If I scroll down, I can see which sources reported on this story and where they fall on the political spectrum according to ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. If you'd like to learn more about how those ratings are calculated, you can go to the methodology page. On the left side of the page, we can see every article about this topic and compare headlines. For example, this headline might seem more moderate if compared against this other headline. What's great is that next to every headline you get context about the source, like who owns it, how reliable it is, and if they have a political bias. They even have a blind spot feed, which shows you stories that are disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum. Sometimes these stories are important issues that you might be missing if you're stuck in a media bubble. We live in a world where it has become incredibly difficult to identify the truth, which is why Ground News is such a necessary tool. By comparing coverage, you can start to see a through line of facts. I really think what they're doing is important, and I encourage you to check them out. If you go to ground.news/thepaintexplainer, you'll get 30% off of their Vantage plan, which includes unlimited access to every feature. Or you can try their Pro plan for as little as $1 per month. Your subscription will not only help this channel, you'll also be supporting an independent platform working to make the media landscape more transparent. Thanks again, Ground News, for sponsoring today's video. Intentional vagueness. Saying something so vague as to be meaningless or open to multiple interpretations. In so doing, the vagueness distracts attention from legitimate concerns or questions. Labeling. Describing someone, something, or a group with a derogatory word or phrase. Latitudes of acceptance. In order to make someone agree to something that he doesn't agree with, a more extreme stance on the subject could be first taken, so that when the actual moderate argument is presented, it seems more acceptable. Another technique could consist in moderating one's own position to kind of match the target's beliefs, and then over time, slowly moving to the one that was previously held. Limited hangout. It happens when someone's veil of secrecy is shredded, and he can no longer rely on a phony cover story to misinform the public. He resorts to admitting, sometimes even volunteering, some of the truth while still managing to withhold the key and damaging facts in the case. The public is usually so intrigued by the new information that it never thinks to pursue the matter further. Loaded language. Specific words and phrases with strong emotional implications that are used to influence the audience. Love bombing. Love bombing is a technique used to recruit someone to a cult or ideology by bombarding him with affection in an attempt to isolate him from his prior beliefs, values, and social support. Milieu control. Controlling someone's communication style and environment through the use of social pressure and group language. An example could be slang that enables group members to identify other members. If the communication style becomes too peculiar, it might result in isolation from the surrounding society. Obfuscation. It happens when a message is intentionally made difficult to understand. Operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is a learning process where behaviors are modified through the association of stimuli with reinforcement or punishment. Oversimplification. Favorable generalities are used to provide simple answers to complex problems. Paltering. Paltering is the active use of selective, truthful statements to mislead. Pensée Unique. Enforced reduction of discussion through the use of overly simplistic phrases or arguments. Quotes out of context. Selective editing of quotes that can change meanings. Rationalization. Rationalization is a defense mechanism in which people justify difficult or unacceptable feelings with seemingly logical reasons and explanations. Repetition. This refers to the repetition of a certain symbol or slogan so that the audience remembers it. Scapegoating. Assigning blame to an individual or group, thus alleviating feelings of guilt from responsible parties or distracting attention from the need to fix the problem. Semantic satiation. This technique has the intent of lessening the impact of a certain word by repeating it and using it for trivial accusations. The word becomes more normalized and does not have the same negative impact. Smear campaign. A smear campaign is an intentional, premeditated effort to undermine an individual's or group's reputation. Testimonials. Testimonials are quotations in or out of context that are cited to support something. Third-party technique exploits the fact that people are more willing to accept an argument from a seemingly independent source of information than from someone with a stake in the outcome. Transfer. It's a technique of projecting positive or negative qualities of a person onto another one to make the second one more acceptable or to discredit him. Unstated assumption. This technique is used when the propaganda concept would seem less credible if explicitly stated. The concept is instead repeatedly assumed or implied. Whataboutism. It's a technique that attempts to discredit an opponent's position by charging them with hypocrisy without directly refuting or disproving their argument. Misuse of statistics. Reporting statistics in such a way as to inappropriately alter people's perceptions on a certain topic. Many propaganda techniques use logical fallacies or biases to reach their goals. In this video, I've excluded the ones I already talked about in these two videos. Go check them out.